That's fine.
And here we go. We have liftoff. Propulsion continues to be nominal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Starliner.
Water towers fly! Yes!
Tango down to nominal.
Fighting outside FD off. Bring in FD off. It's orange!
125! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Décollage!
What is it?
Put that in the big bag, Eagle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
The methane would be igniting the flare, correct?
Yikes. You dead? Sure. We don't need any more of these.
Good morning, everyone. How are you doing? It's a lovely... No, it's not a lovely, sunny, Floridian day. But what is lovely to see, maybe not the clouds, but definitely that Starliner spacecraft atop that Centaur second stage, atop the Atlas V booster in front of your very eyes. I think whoever set this camera up might have been a little bit optimistic and thinking of Vulcan when framing. But well, we've got many cameras looking at this. Don't fear, but we are of course live for the rollout of the Starliner vehicle for the crew flight test mission. The first time humans will board and fly to the International Space Station, or fly at all, atop Starliner on an Atlas V rocket. The first time humans will fly on an Atlas rocket of any class for many, many, many years, and the first time humans will take off from the Space Force side of the facility here since Apollo 7, I believe, back in the 1960s. Somebody who's been looking into this mission quite a lot because they've been writing the article. Sawyer, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. It is so great to see the vehicle roll, all half of it at this point. But regardless, I mean, I've been excited for this mission. I've been following it all the way back since OFT, before it had to be named OFT-1. And it's exciting to finally see crew fly and get 2 crewed spacecrafts flying to and from the ISS.
NASA loves to use the word redundancy, which is a fair point. They have the Seat Bartlett agreement with Roscosmos to fly an American on Soyuz, so they'll fly a Russian on Dragon, and this is the whole point of the commercial contract. We have 2 companies doing the thing. Of course, as everybody knows, Dragon and SpaceX have been doing it. They've got 8 operational flights under their belt now. Starliner, as we all know, has been delayed several times. It's had its issues, but it finally looks like things are going to be smooth sailing. They have a vehicle. They've done years of checkouts. It's all looking good so far. And, it's finally... It appears to have stopped motion ever so slightly, but things are looking good at the moment. Don't be scared if we see it stop and start, because there is a little bit of an incline between the building you see on your left. That's the vertical integration facility. That's where Atlas and Vulcan vehicles are stacked before rolling out to the pad. There's an incline from there all the way up to the launch pad at Space Launch Complex 41 at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. So they will stop, rev up the engines, do a little bit of a run up in order to be able to get up that incline. Then it has happened before that they've gotten halfway up the incline, run out of steam, run out of momentum, and then had to go back to the VIF and then power up to try and get up the hill again, because, they are currently transporting a massive rocket on what is essentially some beefed up railway infrastructure. Max there, adjusting the shot ever so slightly. Thank you very much,
That's
Max.
D actually out there doing
Is it D?
that.
Oh, I apologise. I thought this was Max's feed. D has obviously got on hold of the camera. Speaking of Max and D, those are our field people today. We're not sure if we'll be able to get Max on comms because, if I remember correctly, he's currently running around like a madman with cameras, getting photos and such for our actual launch coverage and articles like the one that Sawyer's written, which will be publishing soon. Yeah, we may not get any field voices, but be assured they are out there. They are getting videos, I'm sure. I'm not sure if D will be doing any slow-mo of the rollout because it's already quite slow. I'll take it either way. And of course, as always, this is an NSF stream. If you have any questions, tag us in chat at NASASpaceflight. You don't have to super chat, you don't have to tip or gift memberships or anything like that. You just have to put it into chat and tag us, and then it comes into the queue. Then we can try answer them, or rather, I'll give them to Sawyer to try and answer. Such as this one from Cargade asking, "Is the rocket already fueled?" Now, I believe, I might be wrong, but I believe it might already have RP1 in there, Sawyer, but I'm not entirely sure.
The fuel loading happens at T-minus 6 hours before liftoff. So right now, obviously, the 2 solid rocket motors at the base there, those are fueled. The spacecraft itself is fueled with all of its hypergolics and what it will use for maneuvering in orbit. But the Atlas itself gets, again, as mentioned, starts fueling at T-minus 6 hours, and it takes about 2 hours to fill the tanks.
No load and go procedure here, unlike we see on Falcon 9, as the transporter is now gaining speed. We can now see the massive ULA lettering on the side of the mobile launcher platform there. The big concrete-looking tower where it is umbilicaled up. Is that English? I don't know.
It is now.
And you can see the very unique-looking shroud, aerodynamic shroud around the base of Starliner there. This is, I believe... Oh, I'm going to have to do some Googling now. Hang on, let me have a look. Sorry, I'm Googling now. I believe this is the first time we've seen an exposed Centaur second stage since the last flight of the Atlas V 400 series, because the 500 series has the 5-meter fairing, and the fairing completely encapsulates the second stage from the booster. But Starliner, of course, it doesn't have a fairing. So now I'm very quickly looking through Next Spaceflight to see when the last Atlas V 400 series was.
Yeah, it was the final 400, I believe.
You'd be correct, but I can't remember which one it was. So I'm still looking. I know this is excellent commentary, ladies and gentlemen. You're absolutely loving this. JPSS2, there we go. Top of the mind from Vandenberg with the 401. That was the last time we saw the Centaur, the Centaur 3 on the second stage.
It's a very unique view to see. Again, that aerodynamic shroud makes it look kind of silly in some ways, but it is aerodynamically sound. And again, it has flown twice already. The Atlas in this configuration, which is known as the N22, N meaning no fairing, the 2 meaning the 2 solid rocket boosters on the side, and the second 2 meaning 2 upper stage Centaur RL-10A engines.
And you probably already figured it out by now, but I will just note it in case anybody is confused. If you see the vehicle going from left to right, and then suddenly we switch to another shot and it's going right to left, don't worry, it hasn't turned around, it isn't going back. We just have a camera, we have a pack and a camera set up. Thanks to ULA, they've invited the media out to cover this rollout for this historic mission. But we also have our robots at the Launch Complex 39 press site, which is on the other side of the station, because it's actually at the Kennedy Space Center. So it's just looking at a different perspective. We're looking kind of southeast here rather than northwest a little bit. So there you go. That's why here it looks like it's going right to left, but from the other side it looks like it's going left to right. Of course, you can watch all of those cameras at any given time, 24/7, on Space Coast Live.
Good plug.
See if there's... yeah, thank you very much. Just seeing if there's any updates yet from ULA, because as always, ULA doing their little live blog on their website, keeping us all up to date as the Atlas V with Starliner is really picking up speed now, heading down towards the launch pad here. Looks like there's one incoming, see if there's any cool information in that. But yeah, it's always great ULA doesn't really do like a live tweeting thing. They just do a live blog, which, dare I say, I actually kind of prefer. So thank you very much, ULA. It's very, very much appreciated. Here we go. What have we got here?
That the mobile launch platform travels 1/3 of a mile to the pad. It's about 550 meters, if I recall correctly. With the help of undercarriage rail cars and track mobile machines that push the entire 1.6 million pound platform and the Atlas V rocket along tracks up the hill to the pad. And yes, it is an uphill ride.
1.6 million pounds. No, that's not the price. It's 725 metric tons for everyone else.
It is a beast.
Yeah. Got a little bit of support coming in from Joe. Thanks very much. You've upgraded to Capcom. That now means you get access to the Discord server, the fabled Discord server, where Jack likes to cause chaos. And, well, there's actually some useful things that goes on in there as well. Everyone, I will leak this as well. A little bit of a leak. I'm not Chris B. I'm not the top leaker, but if I'm ever going into a teleconference or a press conference or something, I'll always do a little ping and see if anyone has any burning questions. Because I like to get the community involved. You guys are the reason that we can do this. So, I like to get you all involved.
Yes, and I also need more supporters telling me that what Jack considers a bagel is not actually a bagel.
Oh, here we go. Soul24 asking, when is it envisaged that Vulcan will launch Starliner? Sawyer, do we know of any burning plans to crew rate Vulcan, or have they got enough Atlas V's lying around for now?
They've got 6 Atlas V set aside for the Starliner missions. Beyond that, our team actually just did a great interview yesterday with one of the people that works on the commercial crew program, and they are working with United Launch Alliance to look into the possibility of crew rating Vulcan so that it can then carry Starliner once they run out of Atlas V's. So it's not official, but it is being looked into. So figure at least 6 years from now for the 6 that are rolling out. So it probably wouldn't be till the 2030s.
I'm seeing Chris B in chat now saying, I don't leak in brackets on a weekend. Alright, Chris. Alright. Let's have a look through here, see if there's any other questions coming in as well. Another question here from Soul24. Brilliant questions today. Why are the SRBs designed, or why are they mounted asymmetrically? Why a maximum of 5 and not uniquely even SRBs such as 2, 4, or 6?
Honestly, it has to do with the layout and the design of the Atlas V core stage. It just worked out that the way that they would be able to put them in place is in the configuration of 2, 4, 5, and technically they could have done 3, but closest they've come to that was the Atlas 411, which had one solid rocket booster that launched OSIRIS-REx, which was quite entertaining to see in person, especially watching the contrail go crooked and then somehow still make it straight up. So it honestly comes down to the design of the core stage.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, there's like a pipe or something that's right in the way of not allowing them to do like a proper symmetrical SRB pattern. And also, like, if you have nearly enough thrust with just the booster to get your payload into its desired orbit, and you only need one more SRB, like, what's the point? Why would you need to fly with 2 if one does the trick? You save money because you don't need to buy another one, and less part is better because there's less places for it to go wrong. You can see the pad should be coming into a view very shortly because we're kind of like. I'm going to do a terrible explanation of this now. We are a bit. This camera perspective is a bit southeast, kind of looking, at the vertical integration facility. So the more you look to the right, you can see one of the lightning protection system towers now kind of peeking into view on the right side there. Oh, look at this camera from on top of the VIF, I believe, as well. So look at this. You can see the team on the ground as well, escorting the trackmobiles up the ramp towards the pad. And from this perspective, it looks pretty close. But I'm not sure if that's just a trick of the eye or not.
It could be. And again, just for reference, where our team is currently, if anyone knows where the astronaut beach house is, It is very near to that. They set the team up on a mound that has the clear view that we've seen of Atlas rolling out. And then, of course, this one from the press site, as you mentioned. Fun fact, this is going to be the 100th Atlas V that you're seeing here. So even though the program is coming to an end and all of the remaining Atlas vehicles have been assigned to a mission, yeah, this is vehicle number 100 for Atlas V, and it just so happens to be the first Atlas to carry crew, or to support crew-related missions, basically, since the early 1960s.
Excuse me. Very, very cool. You know, this might just be my love of pedanticry, which is a word I've invented, and facts and things like that. But I just like the fact that, you know, for the first time since Apollo 7, humans are going to launch from the Space Force side, which was then the Air Force side of the base. You know, I just like that fact. I can see, I've seen many examples on the internet over the last few days of people being confused, like, but Dragon and the shuttle, they launched humans. Like, yes, I know, but that was from the KSC, which is technically different, and I just like being pedantic. I like the facts. You know, I just like that fact that, you know, because there's a little bit of history, a little bit of, it gets my fact brain grooving. I just like it. I just like it. Sorry, everybody, if you hate being pedantic, but I just like it. I just like it.
Shallow and pedantic. And I should point out that, I mean, Atlas carried John Glenn into orbit, first American to orbit the Earth. It carried the Agena target vehicles that were used for rendezvous and docking with the Gemini program. And even though it is a Atlas family rocket, pretty much the only thing that they have in common right now is the name. It's made dramatic changes since that first iteration of Crew Atlas.
I suppose you could say they are extended cousins. Maybe they use the same type of bolt somewhere. Maybe, perhaps. But you're right, they are very different vehicles. But still, it's nice to see the name Atlas carry over, even if it is just in the name. It's still nice to see that name carry over so many decades of spaceflight. You know, this was essentially this was one of the vehicles that kick-started human exploration of space, right? In terms of the name of the rocket family, and now for the second time in its history, it's going to be launching a brand new crew capsule, because Atlas launched Mercury, and I think that was it, because Gemini was on Titan, Apollo was obviously on the Saturn family, and now we're seeing Starliner on Atlas.
Right, and this, I believe, was a Titan pad at one point, Slick 41, which is now obviously for Atlas V. So this will be the first time, though, that crew launches from this particular launch pad, Slick 41, at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. They've had the crew tower up there for a while. There's the crew access arm that you can see kind of in this view. If you look also very closely off to the side, there are wires that are running down from the crew access tower, and that is the emergency egress system. So basically the way that this one works, whereas the shuttle used slide baskets, these kind of use harnesses that you might see someone ride on a zip line. And those actually are able to be controlled by the crew and or pad team if being used by squeezing these little handles that are on it to control the speed. So they actually have control over their descent rate, although it can get up to 40 miles per hour in under 30 seconds.
And it appears to have slowed and stopped before entering the final section of the pad here. On that note, Sawyer, I do think, in my opinion, Slick 41 is kind of like the most versatile gigapad currently at the Space Coast. It can launch cargo, it can launch crew, it can launch Atlas V, and it can launch Vulcan. You know, it can launch not only two types of missions, crew and cargo, but it can launch two types of rockets. This is the only, I think, launch pad in the world which can concurrently launch two different families of rockets. Atlas V and Vulcan, then they're two different completely things. This one's Carolox and liquid oxygen, Carolox, and Vulcan is Methalox. There's two different fuels. It's just, you know, Slick 41 is incredibly versatile with what ULA has managed to do with it. And of course, they've got the crew tower for the crew missions. And they've got the lightning protection system, you know.
Right.
It's more versatile than 39A is at the moment. 39A can only launch Falcon rockets and cargo and crew. This can launch 2 different types of rockets. Maybe the increase from Falcon 9 to Falcon Heavy is enough to you know, class it the same way. But either way, in terms of rocket naming, Slick 41 beats 39A.
And, well, yeah, I guess in terms of naming, it's also worth noting that it's not just 2 different fuels, it's 3. Because you have the refined kerosene that they use on Atlas, you've got the methane that they use on Vulcan, and the Centaur upper stage is cryogenic, which is liquid hydrogen and oxygen. So you've got 3 different types of propellants that you can load at the same pad for 2 totally different rockets.
Still appears to be sitting still in its current spot. Again, if you have any questions or queries or anything like that, you don't have to super chat, you don't have to gift memberships or anything, you don't have to tip. You just put them in chat at NASASpaceflight. They come into the queue. We'll do our best at answering them. It's just, you know, we are very grateful for everybody who tunes in and watches, especially on like a last minute notice like this. This hasn't been scheduled for days. Well, you know, it's like, oh, it's rolling. We need to go live. Need to go live. We are a little bit more organised than that, but you get the idea. But very much thanks to Stephen, who's also upgraded to Capcom membership. You, Stephen, now get access to the Discord. So hopefully soon you'll be able to meander your way over there. Garrett here with a very good question, Sawyer. How many Atlas V launches remain? Because obviously they're not selling them anymore. It's dare I say, a dying breed.
Yeah, it is, as you mentioned, a dying breed. We say that there's still going to be launches probably for another 8 years or so. So even though we are at the end of the program, there's still dozens left here. And again, as mentioned, 6 of them specifically are for Starliner set aside. I would have to look up the exact number. I'm sure Alex has a spreadsheet related to it, but you've got some time to go see one still.
Kuiper is, of course, going to be, I don't know, save isn't the right word, because Kuiper hasn't saved Atlas, but it's going to be very, very instrumental for the final flights of Atlas. You know, the only reason those Atlas will launch is because of Kuiper hoovering up so many different launches across so many different vehicles. I mean, I don't know a rocket that doesn't have a Kuiper contract at this point. They've kind of got contracts on every single rocket in existence.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So, still waiting. Is it moving again?
It is moving very slowly.
Yes.
Which,
I was worried it was the heat haze.
Yeah, given that this is the steepest incline, they are going to slow it down even more. So, it's going to take a little while to go up the ramp and laser align itself and then reach its final destination on top of the flame trench at the pad.
You can see the shot is kind of boiling here a little bit. That's not anything we're doing. It's literally the atmospheric distortion because of the wonderful Floridian heat and humidity that I'm sure Max will have a go at or something along those lines. Yeah, there's nothing we can do about it, unfortunately, apart from get closer, which we're not going to do. But still, we're very grateful to ULA allowing us to roll out, stick a camera up, and watch this rocket roll out to Slick 41. Ever so slightly now, creeping towards the pad.
And we've just passed the L-60 hour mark as well, until launch at 10:34 p.m. Eastern Monday.
Weather's still looking good, I believe, from the
95% go.
Yeah, I remember. I put it in my calendar. I was meant to go to the teleconference last night. I think it was at 5:30 Eastern, or something like that. Oh no, it was at 5:30 my time, so it would have been like 12:30 Eastern. Anyways, I was still editing Twist. I was trying to get Twist out on time. Failed miserably at that. But I was trying to get Twist out for everybody to watch. If you haven't watched it, go watch it. And I completely forgot, unfortunately. Yeah. That's the way it goes sometimes, though. Fingers crossed it still is sticking for that T0 time. Whether or not, I mean, a 95% forecast is pretty good, but at the end of the day, it is still a forecast. So we do have to be, conscious of that. The weather's going to do what the weather's going to do. We can predict it very precisely, but totally not 100, not with 100% accuracy, even in today's modern age of technology.
And it's worth noting as well that given the fact that this is a crew flight, there are extra precautions that need to be put into place, not only in terms of the launch vehicle itself and the commit criteria for that, but also in the event that an abort is needed, there are abort weather constraints as well. If you give me a second, I can get you the exact requirements for it.
I'll
Uh,
just, I'll give
yeah.
I'll give you a little minute there, Sawyer.
Yep. I'll have it here for you in just a second.
Play the Jeopardy music, everybody.
Yes, I know. Riveting content here. If there's any other questions, feel free to ask them while I'm pulling this up.
Okay, let's have a look through here. This is a good one from the Orbital Launch Mount. That's the Orbital Launch Mount themselves at Starbase, asking, is Starliner bigger than Dragon and or Orion? So I guess we could do this in a few ways in terms of like mission capability, in terms of crew capacity, and also in terms of physical size.
In terms of size, the best way to describe it is, how do I put it? It's larger than Apollo, but smaller than Orion. I think that's the best way to describe where it kind of fits in the size frame there. I would have to look at the exact numbers on Crew Dragon to see where that's at, but I believe it might have slightly more capacity. I mean, the end goal is that they want to be able to carry 7 people on Starliner. Once it becomes operational, Starliner 1 is expected to carry 4 astronauts, but they are keeping an option for a 5th seat that could be added, say, for a space tourist or someone else that pays to fly on that additional seat. And there we go. In terms of the weather constraints, for the ascent abort corridor, the wave height has to be below 4 meters, which is 13 feet. Surface winds below 27 knots. No thunderstorms within the abort landing area, and no lightning within the abort landing area. And that's in addition to all of the other requirements for the Atlas V itself.
Thanks very much, Sawyer.
You're welcome.
Of course, Starliner as well also potentially could have a future in terms of the orbital reef station, if it still exists and survives, and other commercial capabilities, because that was kind of the plan that NASA had all along, to try and kickstart a commercial crewed flight economy, kind of, if you put it that way. That was what their plan was all along, and competition, hopefully driving prices down and increasing reliability and safety and all of the other things that need to be increased. As I said at the start of the stream, Dragon has obviously done many more flights than Starliner at this point, and Starliner has had its teething issues, but I don't think that's any reason to kind of hate on Starliner. You know, the more crewed vehicles we have, the better. You might disagree with its price, you might disagree with Boeing at the moment, but in my opinion, you know, we should be cheering these people on and not hating on them, because, you know, there's many engineers behind this who have done a lot of hard work over the years and identified issues. You know, I'd rather them identify the issues and fix them than fly with a dodgy capsule, and it looks like they've done that. Butch and Sonny are very confident in this mission, so is NASA, so I don't think there's any reason not to be at this point. I'm personally very excited.
Right, and I did see a question from someone asking, will it fly more or less than Crew Dragon? And the answer is they plan to change how they will do crew rotations to the ISS. So instead of 2 Crew Dragon launches a year, it will be 1 Crew Dragon followed by 1 Starliner, and then alternating back and forth. It is very possible that we might see more Crew Dragons, because of private missions like Axiom. But in terms of NASA missions, the plan is to alternate 1 per year.
obviously NASA has had to fly Dragon twice a year so far with its crew because that's the only commercial capability they've had. But you can see how they're shifting it up now. And also, that doesn't mean in future, as NASA and Roscosmos and all the other ISS partners plan to phase out the International Space Station, naturally it is going to be coming to the end of its life at some point, and these commercial stations start to arrive on the scene in low Earth orbit. There's nothing saying NASA won't contract out Dragon or Starliner for crewed flights to commercial space stations. Instead of just renting the spacecraft, they'll rent the spacecraft and the station because it will save them money. And this is the whole master plan for commercialization. Another new word for today of space. You know what I mean, though. You know what I mean.
Oh yeah, it's still understandable.
Starliner and Atlas V now creeping even closer to the pad. They're nearly there now at this point. At least from this perspective, it looks like they're nearly there. They have gotten up, or they are still getting up that kind of steepest part of the incline there. If you're just joining us now, the journey from the vertical integration facility where Atlas V, Centaur, the solid rocket boosters, and Starliner are stacked together, the journey from there up to the launch pad where we are now is an incline. So they kind of have to rev the engines, get them up to speed, get some momentum, and to be able to get up that hill, because we have seen in the past they've gotten halfway up the hill, realised they don't have enough momentum to get to the top, have to stop, reverse back down the hill, and then try again. I believe they even had to do that for Vulcan. The first or second time they rolled Vulcan out, we saw that on Space Coast Live, and we were like, what are they rolling back for? Well, has something gone wrong? And they just needed to build up a bit more speed in order to get up the hill.
Well, also at this point, they're making sure that the spacecraft is exactly where it needs to be, because you've got the crew access arm that has to swing into place. You've got the the flame trench at the bottom that is to be lined up. So again, that is actually using precision laser guidance to make sure that it reaches exactly where it needs to be at the launch pad part itself.
A good question here from Giovanni asking, I've never understood why were Kennedy Space Center and Cape Canaveral Space Force Station divided. It doesn't make sense with the pad numbers. Sobbing emoji. Well, Sawyer, as our current resident Cape or Florida residents on comms, would you like to do a brief history? Would you like to summarize the entire history of Cape Canaveral in 30 seconds? Go!
Okay, so basically it started off as a missile test range, and so that was done by the Air Force at the time. Eventually, obviously, the space program kicked into place, and then NACA, which later became NASA, ended up taking part of the site as well. So the main reason now that's the difference with Cape Canaveral, formerly Air Force Station, now Space Force Station, is that is owned and operated by the military, whereas NASA on the Kennedy Space Center side, which at one point was just called Cape Kennedy, is government run in that sense. So that's the main difference between the two. And you will find a lot more people with guns waiting if you're trying to get into the Space Force side than you are if you try and get in on the KSC side.
Yeah, the KSC side is a little bit more open, considering that they have an entire visitor complex and semi-theme park set up around space exploration there, compared to the Space Force side.
Hopefully that summarized the entire history of Cape Canaveral there.
I mean, it's probably good enough for today's stream. When Chris has ran out of shuttle missions to talk about on Shuttle Sunday, we should probably get Julia on and do some kind of like Space Force Sunday, where Space Force Station Sunday rolls right off the tongue. Chris says never. I mean, Chris, there's only 135 missions for you to pick from. I mean, you're going to run out at some point unless you start making things up. Moving on, Gareth is asking, can Starliner launch on anything other than Atlas, or is it designed specifically for Atlas? Now, sorry, I believe there's a word that begins with A that I can't say properly, that Ian says all the time, and I love the way he says it. What is that word? It's like androgynous. That's the word.
Yeah, so basically it's designed right now to fly on Atlas V and solely on Atlas V. Keeping in mind that it also had to be crew rated, which takes quite a while to verify that it is indeed safe to put astronauts on top of it. So at that point, you're kind of going to stick with that. with the end goal of flying it all on Atlas and then potentially switching to Vulcan once they run out of Atlas vehicles. At that point, though, Vulcan still would need to be certified to carry crew as well, and they would need to probably make some adapters to get the capsule on top, but as mentioned, that's still years down the road.
And the vehicle looks to have stopped ever so slightly. I don't know if it's in position. It doesn't. Is it? I don't think it's in position unless I'm mistaken. But it does appear to have stopped.
It's inching, I think. It's hard to tell with the heat distortion, but
Yeah, the heat
even
distortion
inching.
doesn't help.
We'll see.
Just have
if
to keep
they
a close
update.
eye.
Yeah.
So I wonder if the vehicle has actually gotten into its slot there. We'll wait for an update from ULA. As I was saying earlier, they do their live blog, which we greatly appreciate. It's a great way to get insight into what they're doing at the moment. But very quickly, another question here from Cargo Sawyer asking, can Starliner carry unpressurized cargo similar to Dragon?
That's a good question. There is not really a cargo type module there that's attached in the service module itself. The service module that's attached to it in total contains 48 different kinds of thrusters in terms of RCS and OAMS. So it's more for propulsion and life support than it is for carrying unpressurized cargo. So at this point, not really, no. And keep in mind also that the type of architecture between Crew Dragon and Cargo Dragon is almost identical. They're very, very close to each other. So to be able to throw something in the trunk for a crew mission is easy enough since it's basically the same type of trunk for the cargo mission.
And per ULA's latest update, we are not in final position yet. I guess you can also see that kind of, but it's difficult to see from this angle, so I just thought I'd clarify that for everybody. It still has a little ways to go as they go the final few steps, because they have to shield off the trackmobiles, because they can't reverse them out because there's a mobile launcher platform in the way, so they actually have to live in the launch pad. They have to shield them away because there's no way of getting them out, which is a fun fact. There's probably a video there. Well, I know video exists. Another top leaker, and maybe a video that's been in production for a long time now about rockets moving. But I won't go any further than that. I'll just say it's very cool.
Oh yeah.
Let's have a look through here if there's any more questions. Again, if you're just joining us and you have a question, all you have to do is tag us in chat, and that's the spaceflight. That just filters it through into the queue. That rhymed. Didn't intend for it to be rhyming. You don't have to super chat or anything. Just put it in. Just put it in chat.
By the way, you like the term androgynous for the type of vehicle?
Yep.
Another term that you can use for this type of vehicle is dissimilar redundant architecture. Isn't that one fun to say too?
Yeah, say that 5 times fast.
That's basically saying, to answer the question for the people have of, well, why do we need Starliner when we have Crew Dragon that's working just fine? In the event that something were to happen to Crew Dragon, you need another vehicle that can replace it. And in addition to that fact, since it's basically totally different, the dissimilar architecture, it would be less investigation needed to get that flying quicker to continue crew rotations on the ISS.
Very interesting. Let's have a look through here. Matrix is asking, does the Atlas V need to be pressurized the entire time it is stacked, or is it strong enough to stand on its own? Now, the mobile platform does appear to have like air conditioning lines coming out of it, Sawyer. I don't know if you know if that's just to keep the rocket happy, or if it genuinely needs the tanks to be pressurized, because as you said, the booster is going to be fueled at T-minus 6 hours.
Right. I mean, the tanks are pressure stabilized. I would have to check exactly if they're still pressure stabilized through the entire journey, but they are pressurized earlier than other vehicles, such as Falcon.
And we are now looking at it from one of our Space Coast Live bots. We are just waiting. I believe, unfortunately, Max and D, the media event that they were at, NASA has asked them to wrap up. So we may have lost their feed now. But a big thanks to both of them for rolling out for this rollout. That was completely unintentional, and I do apologise for that horrific pun, ladies and gentlemen. But thank you
Never
very much for Max and
apologise.
D for bearing the brunt of the. I didn't actually intend to apologise, but fake apology. Thanks for them to bearing the brunt of the Floridian heat and humidity, as always, to bring us this rollout from the southern side. That's the word of the pad.
Yeah, someone said in chat that I swallowed a thesaurus, and you're coming up with new words. So between the two of us,
Yeah, we're doing great.
yeah.
You can see there that the vehicle is yet to be eclipsed by the vehicle is yet to be eclipsed by the tower, the crew access tower at Slick 41. But it also doesn't, of course, the heat haze doesn't help, but it doesn't look like it is moving, and it also isn't in position. So we don't exactly have a time from ULA, I don't believe, of when this final step is going to take place. But for the time being, this was obviously a very slow movement. You have to be slow. You have to be careful because this is a big rocket and it's got a crew capsule on top. Nobody in it, but you still have to be careful. So why don't we have a look at what it looks like when you do it really quickly? Whoosh.
Time lapse time.
Whee! And then it stops. Whee! And it slows down because it's got to get uphill. But you can actually see it like increasing in height from Space Coast Live, and then it stops at the gate. They've got to open the gate to get it through. No, they don't. I thought that was funny. That wasn't funny. Then they've got to get it up to the pad, and there we are now. And has it gotten closer? I think it might be getting closer.
It's hard to tell.
It looks closer on here than it did on the time lapse at the end of the time lapse that Jay played.
Doesn't appear to be moving, and again, the Florida air playing tricks on our eyes.
I mean, I can barely read myself, so Florida air is gonna, have a look through here. So we're still waiting, but we can still hang out. Say hello to everybody. How you doing?
I think it may also be worth noting at this point, we talk about that this will be the first Starliner that is carrying crew to the ISS. And the two crew members, I don't think we've mentioned their names yet. You've got Barry Butch Wilmore, and then Sunita Suni Williams, both of whom are experienced astronauts, having flown shuttle and or ISS missions. Both of them graduated from the Naval Test Pilot School. And fun fact, with them both being former Navy pilots, as they ride out in their Astrovan 2 to the launch pad, they had someone cut together the flying scenes from Top Gun Maverick into a video that will be played on the TV inside of the Astrovan as they roll out to the pad.
Now, I have my opinions on the Astrovan for Starliner. They're not too favourable because it does look like they're just getting in the back of a Mercedes Sprinter van. I do kind of prefer the Teslas, and I do prefer the OG retro Airstream. But either way, at least they get to watch a movie on the way there.
I mean, it's very boxy, but then again, if you think back to the launches that happened from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station back in the day, started off with basically a box truck, then a boxier truck, and then they went to the basically Astrovan mobile home silver one that we knew to grew and love, both for Apollo and for Shuttle. But it's different. You can't miss it, that's for sure, with it emblazoned with the Starliner logo on it.
I don't want to be mean, but it's a Mercedes Sprinter with the Mercedes logo scribbled out in crayon and a big A drawn on instead. I mean, it looks comfortable, but I just mean, it just looks like something that you'd take to like a promotional gig to try and advertise your Starliner or something. I don't know. Maybe that's what they are doing with it, trying to advertise Starliner. But
I mean,
just, you know, I
you
prefer the
definitely can't miss
Teslas. I just prefer the Teslas.
Yeah, and it's also worth noting, though, that unlike the Teslas, these will have live video from inside and outside of the Astrovan, assuming
Well,
the
the Teslas
AT&T...
have live video.
Typically, it's a chase car that's getting the live video.
Oh, I thought the Teslas had like a dash cam thing. I was
It tends
mistaken.
to be a chase cam from NASA that will ride behind it, and then once they get on the main road that goes towards the VAB, the entire road is closed off, so they will go the wrong way in traffic on the left side of the road and chase alongside the Teslas driving on the correct right side of the road here in the US. But there should be live views from inside and outside of the van for this one, assuming AT&T's network actually works, which is a big ask.
Maybe they need Starlink. No, sorry, not Starlink. Kuiper. They need Kuiper. With their 2 test satellites at the moment.
Yes.
Timed pretty well.
The proto flights.
Either way, wishing them all the best of luck as usual. I genuinely can't tell if the vehicle has moved or not, and it doesn't look like it has. So they may still be going through some precautionary checks before they do the final kind of the final few meters here. Because obviously they have lines to hook up. They need to make sure everything's lined up, and you've got to be extra careful because you have a very, you have the. Or actually, is it in slot? Is it English? Is it in its slot? I can't tell.
Doesn't seem like it, but again, once it's in place, as you mentioned, the big call that we're waiting for would be that it's a hard down. In that it's exactly where it needs to be, the transporter's done its job, and it is down and secured for the launcher part at the pad.
And with that, there's one more question I want to answer, because we've been live for approximately 45 minutes so far, and this one is from a Bakers, asking, how long will the roll take? Approximately 45 minutes. Hopefully that answers your question in its entirety. And with that,
I believe you just dated yourself, because I'm pretty sure that it was an abacus, like the old calculator, basically.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know what one of them was.
These youngins, you know.
And with that, I'm going to thank everybody for watching. Sawyer, thanks very much for coming on. Are you going up there? I'm sure you are going up there for the launch, right?
I will absolutely be there for the launch. And you'll probably be sick of my voice by then talking about Starliner, but hopefully we'll be on the air chatting with you guys as well from the press site.
In the field earlier on, Max and D, thanks very much for rolling out there, you two, getting all the, hopefully we'll get some photos tweeted and member content as well. I know Chris likes his member content with the photos, so make sure to keep an eye out for those. Jay behind the scenes pushing buttons. Thanks, Jay. Thanks. I don't know what else to say. And I've been Brian Caton. Thanks very much for tuning in, everybody, for the last 50 minutes or so. Hopefully, you're just as excited as we are to see Starliner launch in just under 60 hours' time. And with that, thanks, everybody, for watching, and goodbye.
And here we go.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Doubling up. Roger, planet. Water towers, fly!
Tango down to nominal.
Fighting outside FD off. Bring in FD off. It's orange! Orange 45! Oh my god! Oh my god! Decollage! What is it? Put that in the big bag, Jingle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed. We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
This methane will be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You bet. We don't need any more of these.